Thank you, Prashant. It's a pleasure to have you on XROM, which is India's first AR/VR MR podcast. So, for my listeners who don't know about you, I'm going to give them a brief introduction. So, Mr. Prashant Kumar is a dynamic and accomplished product management professional with 13 plus years of experience. He's a speaker, an adjunct professor who has been part of companies such as Tata Consultancy Services, Shopwings, Movinga, and is currently a senior product manager at Amazon. Prashant, really a pleasure to have you. So I accidentally bumped onto your Tedx talk, full immersion virtual reality. So it was really cool. So for the people who don't know about what full dive or full immersion virtual reality is, so can you please explain what a full dive VR is?
Let's take a step back. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
How do we perceive the world today? We perceive the world in 2D, which is we look at it on a camera screen. We perceive the world in 3D, and that is to the sense of depth and touch. And then you have all these movies now, which are 4D, where you also have the sense of smell.
Right.
Full dive is a 360-degree complete sensory dive or integration with a virtual reality, in the sense that you can, once you move into a full dive VR, ideally you should be able to not distinguish, or the line between reality and virtual reality should be blurred. You
Right.
should be able to feel the smells, the taste. You should have the depth perception, everything. That is the extent of immersion into the virtual reality world. That's full dive in a nutshell.
Right.
And that is done through the use of multiple technologies, some of them which are still coming up, others which are still in progress and are being developed.
Lovely, lovely. So let's unbundle full dive VR. But before we get into unbundling full dive virtual reality, let's take a step back. Let's take a step back, as in from the past. You know, when did virtual reality start? Where is it come to right now? So let's walk my audience through what was virtual reality, when it was incepted, and what's the current state of the technology at this point in time.
Sony was actually one of the first ones to launch a VR rig, but at that point of time, the world was not ready to really accept VR
Right.
as something.
Right.
And then you jump 10 years ahead, and you have Google Glasses. Now, Google
Right.
Glasses as an augmented reality function had a lot of plus sides, but at the same time, I think it was still a prototype of what was supposed to come. So its magnificence, I would actually like to quote my favorite movie there, Matrix. The magnificence of the Matrix was underlined or was defined by the utter failure of it as a product. And that was also Google Glasses. Its magnificence technologically was only matched by its complete failure as a product of Google. However, now Apple is launching its Apple Glasses, and people are going absolutely batshit crazy about it. So, and then suddenly Oculus Rift came. And when Oculus came, all of a sudden there was this whole interest over VR, because I didn't think much of it, to be very honest. And then I tried Oculus for the first time, and I was completely blown away. I'm like, this is how you should be. And I'm an avid gamer myself.
Right.
So I would say that the spark of virtual reality in our head was actually put through movies. Matrix was a redefining movie, or was a redefining moment in people of our generation. So that fueled the imagination, which has then cascaded into what is happening today. So where do we stand right now? Right now, I would say that we are on the edge of the hockey curve. Now, why are we on the edge of the hockey curve? Let's look at the technological advances, right? So for the full sensory experience, you need a lot of advancement in technology, and most importantly, nanotechnology. Why? Because you cannot be encased in this big bulky thing. They're not practical, and they are not going to be market friendly. So there have been tremendous improvements in nanotechnology. On top of that, we have now a strong enough, I would say, a strong enough critical mass of people who want to see this technology. through the use of Oculus, through the use of Apple and HTC. Exactly. Thank you. HTC Vive. So now you have a critical mass of people who are, it is becoming mainstream. Then on top of that, let's look at today's climate and I think this pandemic, although it's an incredibly sad thing, has probably propelled the digitization of the world by 10 years. Because now people can actually see the benefits of staying at home and then doing a lot of things. So the stage is set, and we have the technological advances to really go into it. Like Elon Musk has invested in Neuralink, the company which is building this whole the human brain interface. So all the foundational pieces are in place. Now we just need someone or something to bring this all together into a complete sensory experience.
You rightfully pointed out that COVID, this natural disaster, has kind of accelerated all of these frontier technologies at least 10 years into the future.
Yep.
The critical mass of the people or the right companies of pushing this technology forward has given it that right momentum. And things are looking super exciting. And Matrix. So for me also, I mean, I think I've been super influenced by the movie Matrix, and that has charted at least my personal course, of my background has been in the creative field, and I basically have I produce content for advertising agencies and production houses and stuff like that. But I saw Matrix and I got really inspired by it. I got into virtual reality, and then from there to on, it's been like a fun journey. And you also pointed out that these creative people, these artists, somehow have a knack of painting of future. They have been somehow showing us what the future could look like. Some of the biggest minds, like the physicist or the technologist, they watch these movies and they understand that what looked like impossible in their books was made possible by an artist or a writer, through a movie and a book. And then the scientist goes and says, let's just figure out if it could be possible. And I think that's the building blocks of any good technology, because there's these couple of minds who come together. And right now, I think everything that comes from here onwards is going to look like magic, because I think we are entering industry 4.0, where the technology is growing so exponentially that we will not be able to fathom what's coming. So I'm personally super excited. So
I will, Eddie, just a couple of points here. So I'm a huge fan. One of my role models in life has always been Albert Einstein.
Yeah.
And I'm just quoting these words from Albert Einstein himself. He says that imagination is more important than knowledge.
Right.
So if we look at this, what you said was bang on target. And I think that what happens was the artist gave it the imagination. The abstract was given a definition. Now, once you build the outline, the scientist stepped in and he said, okay, you know what? Yes, we can do it. And then the science took it the next step further. And then this is where I think there's another motion picture which kind of gives us a very good view of what is possible today. And for example, again, Steven Spielberg, one of the great directors, his movie, Ready Player One, apart from the whole concept of that virtual ecosystem which we were talking about, economic, he takes a look at two very important parts of virtual reality. One, the technology which is showed in that movie. What are the four major things which shows in that movie? One, that omnidirectional treadmill, which basically allows you the sensation of running everywhere whilst being in the same place. The VR suit, the helmet, and then finally, the connectivity at all points, right? Now, all these four technologies exist today. So Ready Player One is a classic example of technology influencing the reality of being shown in the motion pictures. What is and obviously raises the very important ethical question, which I think is something which we have not tackled yet, simply
Right.
because we have not reached to the point where we need to start tackling it, but something for us to keep in mind at all times.
Right. Yeah, yeah, completely. I think we'll get into the ethical complication of it because somebody needs to talk about it and bring that point really upfront. Because, like I mentioned, we entering the industry 4.0 revolution,
Yeah.
where all of these technologies are going to converge. All these frontier technologies, right from virtual reality to artificial intelligence to IoT to blockchain to synthetic biology to nanotechnology. And I think what it's going to do is going to give us humans godlike powers, possibly in like maybe less than 2 decades time is what I think. So the full dive VR. What was the inspiration of your talk at TEDx? Can you just talk to us about that?
The organizers of TEDx reached out to me, and they had heard me speaking in one of the events, and they wanted to me to come and talk about the impact of technology on human lives. So that was the overall theme of the talk which I was a part of, and they were talking about the ethicality of technology. So I actually, they were not prepared for me to go into this direction. So I met with the organizers and I pitched to them saying that we are making so many technological advances. However, there is a very important technological advancement about which people are not talking. And the reason they are not talking is because either A, they think that it is not important enough. So, for example, a lot of people still think that VR or full time VR is just for gamers like us or movie buffs who want to experience it. No, there are actual very important business applications which we can discuss.
Yes.
And secondly, they are not talking about it because they think that it is so far away. So that's why I went up and I showed them the articles and the scientific discovery which has happened, which can probably say that we can be seeing full dive as close to as the next decade. So then they were intrigued by the ethicality of what we are trying to achieve here. And that's how this whole, and for me, it was a journey of discovery as well, because while I knew the overall space in which was happening, when I really started diving deeper and deeper and deeper into this detail, is when I found out that, okay, there is a lot more to it than just games and all those things. That was the journey I had on this topic.
Anything which looks that it's too in the distant future, people either turn off or they feel that a full dive VR could be either A, it's impossible, or B, it's nonsensical. But both the points are completely wrong. I think virtual reality mixed with artificial intelligence will get in, and brain computer interface will get us to full dive VR. And once we get to that, our world will be completely different. Things will transform. Every industries will either transform or disrupt completely. That's the potential of full dive VR. Now you spoke about Ready Player One. You spoke about the ingredients of what they showed in the movie. Like, I mean, the haptic feedback suits, the omnidirectional treadmill, the VR headsets, and things like that. We
Yeah.
already have a untethered VR headset. We already have haptic feedback suits, gloves, shoes. We already have like a brain computer interface which they have not even got into, which could be transformational for full dive VR. So let's unbundle full dive VR. Let's talk. Let's explain to the audience what are the ingredients or disciplines which you might need to pull to get a complete full dive VR.
So in terms of, so if you break it down, the first thing is the feel, and probably something on which a lot of work has already been done, and what you talked about, the haptic VR suit is exactly that. It works in providing that sense of feel. Now, sense of sight and sound are already taken care of. We already have that done. Sense of smell and taste are something which scientists are working on. I would say that while they are important for a really deep level virtual reality integration, I won't call them as we call in our product management terms, I won't call them a P0. That is the first prototype. It can come as the second prototype. The first prototype, I would say that if you have the ability to see, hear, and feel the virtual reality world, you are already a lot deeper than anything else done before. To that, using the using the treadmill, that omnidirectional treadmill which we talked about, you get the spatial awareness. So out of the 6 components of the full dive, 4 already exists in, I would say, pretty advanced stages. There's the sense of sight, sound, and the omnidirectional and feeling, they are existing in very advanced stages. Now, there are 2 components on which I think a lot more work is being done or needs to be done. One is, as we talked about, the brain computer interface. Why? Is because if we look at how we interact in the real world, we think something and our body does it. So there's a natural feeling to it. Now, currently so far, if you want to do something in a VR world, you have to use your hands. So it takes away that feeling of being somewhere completely. So with the brain computer interface, you will then actually feel like whatever you are thinking is happening. And that will bring it that much closer. It also increases the acceptance of that virtual reality. But I say that there are 2 very important portions of the complete ecosystem, which are the foundational blocks, but people are not really looking at it. So one is the network connectivity. Because of the amount of data which is produced and which needs to be transferred, I say that this will become more and more closer to reality as our network capabilities increase. Like from 4G to 5G, I think the best example I can give is the remote surgery. The remote surgery used by doctors who are somewhere else in the world, who use a robot to do a surgery in somewhere else in the world, can be only possible through the 5G technology, because there is no lag between what you are doing and what is happening. So if the virtual world needs to also feel real, the lag has to be eliminated or brought down to very low levels. So a very strong network infrastructure is super critical here. And then finally, we need to invest a lot more into artificial intelligence, which is able to bind all these components together into a complete experience. Because individually, they are all fantastic. But unless you have a system which takes all of them and then takes care of them and I would say utilizes them to the complete extent, that has to be done by the next gen AI. And I think that is where a lot of conversations are happening right now, whether we should invest in AI, where we should not invest in AI. My stand on that is very clear. We should definitely invest in AI, a sentient AI, uh, because for the simple reasons that saying that AI is good or bad is like saying that a scissor is good or bad. A scissor in itself is not good or bad. It is the people who use it and how it is used which makes it good or bad.
Right.
So for me, this is where we stand. I would say we are 80% there. We are now going in the last 20% of the full dive world, which we need to complete.
Right. Yeah. Yes. So I personally am super excited about full dive VR, but I definitely also do know that the current virtual reality world comes with a lot of technical challenges and drawbacks. For a complete full dive VR, uh, what will play a major role would be a non-invasive brain-computer interface. Most of the brain-computer face and advancements have happened, which is largely invasive.
Hmm.
But there are a lot of people who are working on non-invasive. For example, DARPA, America's division for the defense, is working on something called as next generation non-surgical neurotechnology, N3, and that's going to be a non-invasive form of BCI, brain computer interface, which is pretty good at this point in time. And the world is not aware about these kind of technologies, and like I said, these technologies are growing exponentially, and possibly, maybe, I gave a timeline of 2 decades. Maybe it could be much faster. You pointed out towards sentient machines. I mean, that again could be possibly 30 years or 40 years or maybe less. But the whole gap for or narrow artificial intelligence to go towards artificial general intelligence is the understanding of how a human brain functions. And yes, it's super complicated. We've got around 80 billion neurons and 100 trillion synapses, and how they fire and wire. The day we kind of completely understand that and are able to back engineer that and kind of figure out consciousness, because that's like a different conversation altogether itself. But possibly, maybe that's an emergent phenomena, and that might just like the show. So virtual reality, I think it's extremely profound that people need to know that some of the biggest companies like Facebook, Google, Microsoft are working towards create a technology which will blur the lines of what is physical and what is virtual. Because what we are trying to do with virtual reality is trying to mimic how we see, how we hear, how we touch, smell, taste, and everything. So that's the goal of VR, and I think everybody knows about that, but nobody wants to talk about full dive VR, because I'm assuming that everybody feels that, like the AGI researchers, that maybe you load up your CPUs, GPUs, and IPUs, and maybe intelligence could be a emerging phenomena. So maybe that's the reason some of the biggest companies are not tackling the full dive VR or talking about full dive VR. But I believe that it could be transformational. You mentioned about the use cases. You said about how. So you want to just get a little bit on the use cases of a full dive VR. Which industries where do you seeing the most benefits?
I think uh, there needs to be a pivot of how VR and full dive VR can help you. And that's where this pandemic provides a great point, or a great stepping stone. Every disaster is an opportunity, and this disaster is also an opportunity for us to rethink our supply chains and rethink our work life. How? Let's start with supply chain, right? So I work in e-commerce. For a long time, the biggest challenge is this pandemic, because we have warehouses, large, huge warehouses employing thousands of people, which in case of such a pandemic or any case of disruption where people are not supposed to get out of their house, puts it all on stop, right? So what could be a solution here? And this was exactly the solution. That this was inspired, I was writing an article, this was inspired by the doctors. Actually, the doctors have figured out a way that how we can get a specialist perform an operation in another part of the world using a robotic arm, right? Now take that concept and apply that to the thousands of workers in such places, right? You give the workers two hands, two haptic gloves, and a VR headset, right? That investment you do, and you replace people, and I'm not saying replace and fire them. No, replace the humans with robots controlled by humans, which means that you have a person who can still work from the safety of its home in your warehouse, right? Doing all the work, but they are not exposed to any of the dangers. So then your supply chain becomes resistant to such changes in the climate and health and geopolitical problems. And more importantly, you provide, there are financial benefits to it. If your person is not working, physically not present at the warehouse, you can have more space. You pay lesser insurance for your people. People by themselves don't have to use gas to go there. So it is better for the environment. It is better for their household income. They are staying at home. They can then 8 hours means that they have a longer time to spend their family. These are all learnings we have from our work from home environment. Now, that's for e-commerce. Now let's talk about normal office working people, right? I work from home. I work 10, 12 hours a day. I'm sitting in front. I miss the human interaction. Like, what takes me 2 hours to finish over an email, I will put a person down, have 30 minutes of coffee and be done with it, right? Now, imagine the same thing. You can recreate the entire setting of an office in a virtual reality where you are physically present. You have that interaction of being in an office. You can achieve that. So many shopping malls are shutting down. Imagine putting a shopping mall on the virtual reality where if somebody wants to shop and wants to spend time with their friends, they go on this, they shop through the haptic, they can feel the material of the cloth and they buy it. So we have to understand that going forward, the climate change is happening, pandemics are going to keep coming, the geopolitical scenario is very dangerous, the world is changing, and we have to adapt to a new reality where mobility becomes super important. And how do you get that mobility without putting people's lives in danger is through this technology.
Yes, you pointed out towards how it could uh, impact the healthcare industry, how it could impact the e-commerce industry, and I think that the list it keeps on growing. You know, because we just try understanding the potential of these technology and what it can do, and like I said, rightfully, I mean, even at this point in time, you know, I mean, there are some of the biggest companies who are actually using it for simulation training. Some of the biggest hospitals and healthcare specialists are actually using it for surgeries. Institutes are using it for educating the students. Just a couple of weeks back, I was having this conversation with Dr. Rafael Grossman. He's the world's first surgeon who's used Google Glass, and how he's been using it for his students. You know, instead of while he's doing a surgery where people or all the students trying to peer over, if they get the direct feed from his glasses to wherever the students are in the world, and we are nowhere close to full dive VR. You know, this is just this is what virtual reality can do even right now. So at the beginning of conversation, you spoke about the ethical, moral implications that might arise with these transformational technologies, what it can do. You know, it can create transformation, but it can also disrupt lives. You know, so would you like to talk a little bit about that? And are there organizations which have come together and are trying to build policies in lines of this coming future?
So, as far as I know, the world is two steps behind when it comes to digital world. Like, we still we are still dealing with something as simple as cyberbullying, which which is happening in a world which is not even close to a full virtual reality, but still it is happening. And I have seen kids who are depressed, kids who have taken their life for such a thing. So technology has this habit of exasperating the good and the bad in the humans. So whatever has been happening in the real life, if left uncontrolled in virtual, it's just going to come out exponentially higher. So I'd say that, for example, social media, it's highly addictive. Kids of and youngsters of today are are hooked to things like Instagram, to TikTok, like those videos, people doing risky stunts. We should learn from them, and we need to learn and put together a certain safeguards against that impacting our our lives going 5 years down the line. Because believe me, if you think that Instagram is addictive, they don't know what's coming once full day comes. I can't even describe a drug or an opioid which will come close to the power this technology has. So there, if we do not put together, at the minimum, at least if we do not start having a conversation on this, then if we start doing it by the time it gets launched, it will be too late. Because there is a tremendous power to do good in this technology, but at the same time, there's tremendous power to do bad, and bad to the psyche of young generation, to the mental health of young generation. Because, you know, in reality, good or bad so far has been defined by the general collective. And as the general collective has evolved, the definition of good and bad has changed. With the advent of a VR world, you get a clean slate to define what is good or bad over there. Because many people would argue with me saying, but Prashant, this is a VR world. I should have the freedom to whatever I want. You know, somebody, for example, um, I'm a Hindu, right? So I am not allowed to eat beef. So I should say like, hey, I've never tasted beef. I'm going to a VR world. I would like to know what it is about. In reality, I'm not eating it. So there's nothing wrong there. So what is right? Should I be given that freedom? So how do we define what is right and what is wrong? I have a very simple formula there. My formula is whatever I'm doing, as long as it doesn't hurt physically, mentally, emotionally, another person in my alternate reality, I should be allowed to do that. That's my line. Because if I want to do 10,000 things, I should be allowed as long as I'm not hurting you. But that's my personal opinion. We don't know what is the right answer here. And what is even more scary is we are not even asking the right questions.
Yeah. I think yes, we are not asking the right questions because we are so preoccupied with what we already have. We are not looking at, from where the future is coming. It's coming at a rapid speed, and if we are not careful, it's gonna run us over like a bulldozer. We as a society need to have conversations and start educating the people about, and businesses about, the future, because all businesses or education is built on having a foresight. I build a business because I realize or I know that in another 5-10 years what I'm doing is going to go really really good or take off or going to go down. What are you most excited about full dive VR when it actually arrives?
I would say the biggest advantage or the biggest excitement of full dive would be actually having older people interacting more and using it more and being able to live a complete and fulfilled life despite their challenges. If I have to I'm thinking about it. Sorry, being a little bit selfish, but I'm thinking about it from my point of view. Uh, 30, 40 years from now, when it is come into the level of polish and finesse we are talking about, I'll be what, 70, 75, at a time when everyone starts thinking, or most of them have retired. I will have the opportunity to recontribute and keep doing what I do and love what I do, because I'll be in a place where the limitations of my physical body are no longer going to be impacting the way of life, my quality of life. For me, that is an incredible thing. Think about, so many people suffer from PTSD. If we can use full dive to provide them with a safe, comforting place for them to recover. You have children who suffer from anxiety. We have old people who cannot walk, or old folks who are confined to their homes because they can't be let out. For me, the it has the Eddie, it has the impact of making life very beautiful. If
Right,
used properly, it can really make a tangible impact on the quality of life of millions and millions of people.
right,
And
right.
that's what really excites me. More than the entertainment, more than the business, what really excites me is the opportunity to live life to its fullest till the day you breathe your last breath.
Right. Yeah, Prashant, I think what note to end on. I mean, summarized it that uh, the where we are going. If we go as a collective, chances are that we can build a utopian world. And if we build silos the way we are functioning and move ahead in that direction, we are definitely heading into a dystopian world. Technology today, like I said, all of those technologies are growing exponentially, and people need to know that we are in ways entering the black mirror world,
Yeah,
where yeah, and everything that you have seen on black mirror is going to be a reality in under 20 years. Now, if we take a collective stand, take the right decision and the right steps, we might get into a utopian, or we might get into a dystopian world. And thank you, Prashant. It was lovely chatting with you. And to my listeners, if you like what you see in here, please press the subscribe button. Until next time, see you guys. Bye bye. Thank you. Thank you, Prashant. It was
thank
a
you
pleasure.
guys. Thank you, Eddie. Lovely talking to you.